Welcome to the BIP Ventures Extraordinary Pursuits podcast, a fascinating and inspiring journey into the world of venture capital and startups. Each episode offers masterclasses and entrepreneurial stories from some of the top minds in the innovation economy. Get ready to unlock new ideas and gain valuable advice for how to thrive as an innovator and an investor. Welcome to a special episode of Extraordinary Pursuits. We talk with Allyson Eman, the CEO of Venture Atlanta, one of the most prestigious conferences connecting investors and entrepreneurs. For almost 2 decades under Allyson's leadership, Venture Atlanta has connected high-growth companies with top-tier investors to drive innovation and growth in the Southeast startup ecosystem. For the next 30 minutes or so, Allyson and I discuss how Venture Atlanta and other organizations across the Southeast are working together to advance the region's entrepreneurial ecosystem by creating access to capital, resources, and a network of industry leaders. This is your chance to get the inside scoop on the trends and initiatives shaping technology innovation and investment, and to get some of the best ways to be prepared to take advantage of those opportunities. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Extraordinary Pursuits. And we are so thrilled today to be joined by Allyson Eman, who is, as you've heard, the head of Venture Atlanta, which, if you know anything, you know is kind of the center of the startup conference universe here in the Metro Atlanta region. So we are thrilled to have her joining us. We are going to spend some time today talking about her very close-up personal perspectives on the innovation economy and the way that startups and investors are coming together in our region to drive that economy forward. So, Allyson, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so thrilled to be here with you.
Yes, we are thrilled to have you. So we're going to start with just a brief couple minutes of introduction. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and a little bit about your role with Venture Atlanta?
Sure. So, running a venture capital conference was not what I thought I was going to do in my life. Wasn't on the radar, wasn't on the roadmap. I actually, got a degree in journalism and marketing, and so marketing sort of followed me along, but my career really started in banking and financial services and helping to build a mortgage company. So I guess I kind of got a little bit of understanding about, entrepreneurs building a company. I was like employee number 6 at a mortgage company that scaled to 850 employees and 30 offices, and I ran the marketing for that company. And then, banking crisis, lost my job, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. And as they say, it fell in my lap, this job. So, it was a water cooler discussion. Nora Mosley, partners, Alan Mosley was running the conference, and they were looking for someone to run it. So, truly, my friend worked there. Hey, called me, kind of thing. So, was one of those exciting experiences, and quite honestly, really has been an incredible opportunity. I thought it was going to be a 2-year job. Literally told my husband I'll do this for 2 or 3 years. And 17 years later, here I am. So, the conference started as a 300 or 400 person conference focused on Atlanta, focused on helping Georgia companies. And it really has cemented itself as one of the strongest in the country. People know it in the Valley. They know it in New York. They know it everywhere. And 17 years later, here I am.
Wow. Well, you've built a bellwether, no doubt about that. And congratulations and thank you for that. I think it's really cool when our audience of innovators and founders get to hear from someone who is an innovator and a founder so many years later, and really just get a sense of how wide-reaching the impact can be when you really build for endurance, you build for sustainability, which you've obviously done. So, over the course of that 17 years, you've obviously been up close and personal with the venture side, probably the legal side, certainly the business side, the entrepreneurial side, all of those different components of the innovation ecosystem in our Metro Atlanta region. And I'm just curious how your objectives have sort of evolved over that time period?
Yeah. So, obviously when we first started, it was the focus was bringing in capital, bringing in capital. There was five funds or so, a handful here in Georgia. ATDC existed, but it definitely, wasn't as strong as it is today. And, as we realized we had something, then it was, well, how can we help more founders? How can we keep expanding, across the Southeast, and what can we do for people? But what's interesting is over the last couple of years, we've even shifted in saying, in making sure entrepreneurs understood that Metro Atlanta was not just to connect them with capital, but to connect them with founders, to connect them with mentors, to connect them with talent, to connect them with customers. We invite students come to Venture Atlanta, their future employees, and a lot of so really understanding that Venture Atlanta can have so much impact on a company. I mean, probably my favorite thing last year was a company giving me a hard time that they had to pay $650 for a last price ticket. And I was like, sorry. And he wrote me a letter afterwards, an apology, and said, thank you so much. Best money I ever spent. And, when you get things like that, and when you hear people say, like, this conference changed my life. I mean, there's so many stories of connections made, of people that found their CEO, or sitting in coaching where someone was connected to a future customer, or someone who sat through an executive roundtable and the CEO that they met with joined their board. So there's so many great tidbits. So for me, our objectives continue to change to make sure that we are serving our customers, and our customers are obviously our investors and our founders and our sponsors, right? So,
Yeah.
Venture Atlanta is a 501c6 nonprofit. We have to continue to iterate. And, one of the things, Rochelle, that I think I'm probably the most proud of is Venture Atlanta is not a blueprint. It is not a rinse and repeat. And this is what we do every year. Everyone will walk in and have the same lunch and the same this and the same this. It always is different. And I know everyone, the funny thing is when people come to you and say, so what's new this year? It's because they expect it. And we
They
make
know
sure
that.
that they get that. So we are
Yeah.
all, I think we are, try to be an entrepreneur and try to iterate as much as, the founders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will say on a personal note, I've been to Venture Atlanta many, many times. It used to be that I was there as an entrepreneur. And I was there supporting some of my clients, and now I'm there on the venture side. And, I've seen from both sides and over the years how it's evolved. And I think that, you've called out something important, and that is that you are continuing to iterate and evolve to serve the needs of your customers, your
Right.
clients, and
Right.
and really, like, that's where endurance comes from. So I think that's great. On this, by the same token, though, I think one of the things that you talk about as being core to the value of Venture Atlanta, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, is just, when we look at the Atlanta region, and we've had conversations with Donnie Beamer from the mayor's office, for example, and he talks about the pillars that are going into turning our region into a top 5 innovation market. And those are things like connection to talent and, like accessible capital. And, some of those pillars that what I'm hearing you say is no matter what evolves from a programming standpoint, like it's at the Woodruff or it's over, someplace else, or, like the lunches are different, like those things can change. But what is tantamount to success for the organization is those experiences that people are having with talent, with access to capital, with meeting people, building the network.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
So,
why, Venture Atlanta is, I was just having a conversation with a fund who had never been here from Seattle, basically saying, hey, Atlanta's on our radar. And, one of the things I shared was, Venture Atlanta is not keynote speaker, panel, 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 panel. That some conferences are, it's, hey, we're going to put one or two panels up there. We're going to focus on the company pitches. And we really made a conscious decision last year that, the companies are our focus. That's what our bread and butter is the companies. But we make sure there is ample time for networking.
yeah.
So again, to get to adhere to that mission of connecting companies to capital, like if they don't have any opportunity, then what do we do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your perspectives on, on venture funding in the region.
Yeah.
You kind of have mentioned that it is kind of catching the attention of, supporters. We'll just call them supporters, whether they're sponsors or investors, kind of outside of the region. But you know, you've kind of talked a little bit about the growth. ATDC has been there for a long time. Um, but if I were to ask you now, what do you think the venture environment looks like, especially in comparison to other parts of the country?
Right.
What are you seeing that you
So,
think is noteworthy?
I still think we are so far behind. The Southeast still gets so much less capital than, it still is. We are never going to get to where the Bay Area is, or Boston, New York, but I don't think those should be who we're comparing ourselves to.
Mhm.
Our comparison should be to Raleigh, Durham, to Charlotte, to Austin, to Miami, to Nashville, to those markets. And we need to stay above all of those, markets.
Mhm.
But what we're doing at Venture Atlanta is supporting those markets. So we're bringing those founders in. And hey, if they end up opening a second office in Atlanta, that's wonderful. But most of them are going to go right back to Miami or Nashville or Austin or Raleigh, Durham, and that's okay. That's not why we have Venture Atlanta. But what's interesting is over the last couple of years, one, we've had more and more funds putting boots on the ground in Atlanta. I mean, where they're opening offices, where they have someone here, or they have someone here on a regular basis. I mean, even someone that I just talked to in New York, they were like, "Yep, that's our market." Or people actually saying to me, "Our thesis is investing in companies outside of the Bay Area, Boston, and New York. Like we are not putting money into those markets." So,
Mhm.
there's all of those things. I mean, I still think underserved founders and women, they're not getting what they need. We would be well served if we had a stronger angel market. I mean, especially in Atlanta, we've got some great organizations like Thai Angels and Atlanta Technology Angels and Venture South and groups like that are really strong. But you know what? Like they don't come to Venture Atlanta. Maybe five of them do or 10 of them do. And, we'll have so many entrepreneurs there that are looking for that first check. And to me, that's a really important point to talk about is that, founders come to me all the time. They're like, I can't get that first 50,000. I can't get that first 100,000. And, that was why last year we started our startup showcase, that we had a syndicate. VIP was part of that syndicate last year. And this year we put together another group. And what's really cool is Thai Angels actually came into that group and two funds from out of town, one from Florida and one from North Carolina, so, we're giving one company an opportunity to get a $500,000 check, which is so exciting.
Yeah, no, that's great. That first institutional capital can be really, really hard to come by,
Yeah.
particularly over the last few years when the funding market has been so bananas. In your opinion, do you think Atlanta should even strive to reach the kind of environment that Silicon Valley, New York, Boston are? Or do you think that we should continue to try to be our own thing?
I think we should be our own thing. I just think we're
Yeah.
never going to be those markets, and I think that's okay. I think
Yeah.
people like coming to Atlanta and being part of Atlanta. I think when you have funds that are constantly coming to Venture Atlanta, like they're not going, God, I really wish you had the same event in Silicon Valley. They're like, no one's saying that. And
Hmm.
what's fascinating, Rochelle, is that I always get a ton of applications in from California and New York. And I have to turn all the companies away. And they're like, why? And I'm like, because we're serving the founders in the Southeast. And I have to tell them, I mean, I absolutely applaud, what Mayor Dickens has done. I mean, he's fantastic and what Donnie Beamer has done. And, they're definitely setting their sights on, I think right now we're like a top 15 market. So certainly moving up that food chain, 100%. I mean, I think we're all, so in favor of that. And I think when you look at the infrastructure, the university systems, the pool of talent that we could put in, to founders and startups, and even the programs and the incubators and all the things we have here. I mean, we're just continuing to blossom and grow. And again, like when I could look back and name the five funds now, I can't name on my hand or several hands, the amount of capital that's here now.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. We had a great podcast conversation not too long ago with Malcolm Mohammed from the Russell Center, and he talked about how incredibly rich the network of accelerators and incubators are,
Yes.
to the extent that it's actually a bit of a challenge for founders not to over rely on this support system and to know what to take on themselves.
Right.
So, I think that there are so many different touch points and so many intersections between the mayor's office and these organizations, and what you're doing your organization is doing to bring some capital together. And all of that is great for founders, especially probably earlier stage founders
Yeah.
who are
Absolutely.
not going to have, like ridiculous, scary, and maybe irresponsible valuations, and, are going to
But I
have to
mean,
rely on the kindness of strangers.
and I really think that point of Malcolm's is true. Like people
Yeah.
find themselves, applying to everything and, just
Yeah.
overwhelming themselves. And, you know, I think last year or this year at Pitch Atlanta that Tech Village put on, they did a session and it was, are there too many incubators or should you be a part of an incubator? And,
Yeah.
it may not be the right thing for everybody, but it's also a great opportunity to get mentor and to get structure. And, there's so many founders that don't know what the heck they're doing. I mean, again, like I look at myself, and when I started this job, I mean, I was shown true story, a logo on a piece of paper and said, go, and luckily, luckily Ashish Mistry and Tina Mantella
Mhm.
actually were like, okay, come on, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing, so you had to get there, but I had to have that mentorship. I had to have that
Sure.
support. And I also had to have a community that embraced the idea of Venture Atlanta. And I think that
Yeah.
was the big thing is that, you had pioneers like John Yates and you had David Hartnett at the Chamber and you had, Mitchell Kopelman at Aprio, and you had them going, okay, we're behind you, Jeff Levitt and, folks like that were going to support us. And that was how it started. I mean, that first year, I mean, Alan made calls and went, you will support, and you will support because you all said you wanted this, so it was like,
Yeah.
he kind of did the put your money where your mouth is. And, but then Norm Mosley stepped up and, TTV Capital and Fulcrum and like, the few funds that were here. But, even HEDC has been an incredible partner for us since day one. I mean, absolutely great partner.
Yep, that's great. So let's pivot and talk a little bit more specifically about Venture Atlanta, and about let's talk about this year. You are in the thick of preparation, getting ready for the event. Correct me if I'm wrong. October 8th.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
8th and
So
9th. 8th
8th
and
and
9th.
9th. Yep, at the Woodruff Center in Midtown Atlanta. So there's lots and lots of preparation happening. And my guess is that, as every year is probably the case, you are seeing some interesting trends this year, as you're preparing, especially getting, applications from founders and different interest, requests from sponsors. Can you talk a little bit about some of the trends that you're seeing, some things that we might expect?
Sure, sure. So obviously, the exciting thing for us is we had a record number of applications.
Congrats.
So we were at 15%. We were super excited. The region that had the biggest growth was what we call our Deep South region, which is
Uh-huh.
Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas. And what happened there was partnerships. So, working with Generator out of Alabama, or working with the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, or partnering with Capital Factory in Texas, or the Tampa Bay Wave in Florida, or RevTech Labs in North Carolina. So what's really been so wonderful and just critical for Venture Atlanta is, I kind of always say we play nice on the sandbox. That's kind of my thing. I say all the time, we'll promote the CED, the big conference in North Carolina. We'll promote the Florida conference because you know what? I want everyone to succeed. And then they do the same thing for me. But what happens is all those groups that have founders, they all want their founders to be a part of Venture Atlanta. So, I mean, to the point, Rochelle, that I have multiple ones of these companies sponsoring. So Generator's a sponsor. Tampa Bay Wave is a sponsor. The Idea Village, which is out in Louisiana, is a sponsor, and other groups. So never have had that before. So, that's super exciting for us. We certainly are seeing lots of companies with .ai, there's going to certainly be lots of great AI companies. I think will continue to obviously have our bread and butter of, fintech, cyber, digital health, all that. I have to say personally, I was a bit upset that there wasn't more women that applied. Like, I feel like, especially now with like what you said in 2021, people were just throwing things out and getting a big old check. And, as females, we're so, critical of ourselves, but we feel like our application and our everything has to just be perfect. Every I dotted, every T crossed. And, I think there's several females sitting on the sidelines, just going, maybe I'm not ready yet. Maybe I haven't made enough progress in the last 2 years. So, our numbers were a little down there, and it's so sad and frustrating for me because I feel like as an organization, we've worked so hard. Like, we did this incredible female founders dinner the last couple of years, and we have a women in capital breakfast, and we have, we've had alliances with Launchpad and with different, female-led organizations through the years. But any female founders listening, like, come to Venture Atlanta and, be there because you can still have a great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that there are two females talking about this right now and we
Right.
will both be there, like, come on, come join us.
Exactly. We've got great female leaders on our board. I mean, my
Yeah,
entire team, every single person on my team is a female-led CEO.
that's
Their company's
amazing.
female-led CEO. So.
Yeah, yeah. Well, those are really interesting trends. And I think we're going to pick back up on one of the threads that you've sort of alluded to a little bit later when we talk about what makes Atlanta really special, because I think that there's a lot of echoes there. Let's talk a little bit about, if you're talking directly to founders, and you're having a conversation with them and they're coming from Louisiana or Tampa or, one of these other markets, like you have a chance to sit across the table from them, like, give me your pitch. Why should a founder build here?
So, I actually did some videos, at the beginning of this year because it said, it's like, why wouldn't you come to Venture Atlanta, right? So for $350, grab a cheap hotel room and you are handed a list, not contact information, but a list of 1,500 or so people that are there. You're handed access to a mobile app. You can message people. You could set up meetings. If you do your homework, you can have an incredible experience. I mean, we quoted a guy named Matt from Build It in South Carolina, and I saw him as I was leaving Venture Atlanta last year, and he was like, best money I ever spent. I had 23 meetings. 23 meetings with funds. So, I want founders to think about how long and how much money would it take you to have 23 meetings if you flew to New York, if you flew to
Yeah.
the West Coast, if you flew to Boston, guaranteed it would be more than $300 just for the plane ticket.
For sure.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, if in a day and a half you can spend your time, but you got to do your homework. I mean, you've got to put an effort in. Everyone's not going to just come to you and say, I want to meet with you. You've got to make some effort. But I mean, to me, for founders too, I mean, obviously we certainly would love everyone to put roots down in Atlanta because of, some great stuff that Atlanta offers that we'll talk about. But my big pitch is always just come to Venture Atlanta. I mean, again, to connect with future, with customers, with talent, for students. I mean, we've got a bus of kids coming from Duke. We've got kids coming from Clemson. We've got kids coming from Davidson University. And, what's so cool is like the students clamor to come. I mean, they just like, please, please, please. And, we let some volunteer and we do some student discount tickets and stuff, but we can't have the room full of students, unfortunately. We need to make sure there's room for our investors and our founders, but the students love coming. And, my hope is that one day they'll be on our stage.
Well, absolutely. You got to build a pipeline, a talent pipeline somehow.
Yeah.
So, I think that's really interesting. And, one question that I'd like to maybe say a little bit more about is, we talked earlier a little bit about the we call them the big three, right? Silicon Valley, New York, Boston. And, say a founder were to just buy an expensive plane ticket and fly out to New York. and they're an Atlanta-based company or they're a Tampa-based company. What are the chances that they would even have a private capital provider be willing to talk with them if they're not from one of the big three markets?
Yeah. I
Is
mean,
there a
if they
difference
don't have
there?
a solid connection or they don't have a company that everyone's fighting for, if
Yeah,
it's just a company with $1 million in revenue and they're just, very similar to other companies, they're not going to get a return call.
yeah,
They're not going to be able to do that. But, the funders that come to Venture Atlanta, they're there for a reason.
yeah.
Not only are they there to see companies, they're there to meet their peers. They're there to, hey, I need a lead on, investor. Like there's great story. There's a fund in North Carolina, Front Porch Ventures, and they've done. I mean, they've only been around a couple years. I think they've done 9 deals in Venture Atlanta alumni companies, but their funders are also, Fulcrum and all, funds all over the place. So they met their LPs and their companies at Venture Atlanta, and that's how it is for a lot of people.
That's really interesting. So, what I'm hearing you say is that there is a very high level of accessibility in
Yes.
terms of just having these conversations and building these networks, and finding people willing to listen.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, not to say, certainly want to preface and, say not every single, meeting invitation you send out will be accepted. I say that to
right.
people, all the time. And there are people that are beyond eager, but
Sure.
I tell a founder, I'm like, if you look at who you should be talking to, and you're looking at an investor who writes, checks in the 500,000 to $2 million range, and they write checks all over the Southeast, and they're focused on healthcare. Yeah, reach out to them. But if it's a
Mhm.
company that says we do, companies that have 5 million in revenue and they have to be all cyber, they're not going to meet with a healthcare company.
Right.
So I mean, be smart of, who you reach out to and why.
No, absolutely. And you bring up a really good point about understanding who it is who's here, who's in Atlanta generally, who's at Venture Atlanta specifically, understanding the investment thesis that a capital firm has, like that is step one, because these capital firms, I know our investment team, they review thousands of pitches a year,
Right,
thousands.
right.
Everybody has ideas. Some of those ideas are great ideas. Some of them are not ready for the world yet, and that's okay. But, what I'm curious to hear from you, kind of given, these conversations you're having and knowing who's here and understanding how important preparation is, what does prepared look like? If you're talking to a founder, what does prepared look like? And then, like, if you're talking to an investor,
Yeah.
what does prepared look like?
I mean, I think it's real simple. I think when we hand you the list of companies, I mean, scan through it. If there's companies that were on your radar, look who's there. But then you could get on the mobile app, and if you pick an investor, you can see the size checks they write, the regions they're in. You could then go to their website. You could then message them on LinkedIn. You could connect with them on LinkedIn in advance.
Yeah.
We were actually working with a company called Link this year in
Mm.
Alabama. And so our name tags will have, the connecting capabilities. And what's so cool is that, I mean, I know I'm the person that, like, I'll talk to some people at conferences, and maybe I message or I connect with someone on LinkedIn, and then afterwards I'm like, who did I talk to? Like, I
I
can't
hear
remember who I talked to. Well, every attendee will actually get a list of everyone they connected with. So if you connected with someone, it's going to show you who you connected with. And I think you could then look afterwards and go, was that the right people? Oh, you know what? I really wanted to hit these people up. I'm going to go follow up with them. And as a investor, we give out our conference book, with the information about the companies. Like, you can read up on the companies. We want you to listen to their pitches. Just because you looked at a company online, you looked at their website, like, listen to their pitch, listen to the excitement in the founder's eyes. I mean, and voice, and you might just go, God, you know what? I really wasn't sure what this company did, but clearly, look at their logo slide, look at their growth, their financials, look how they're really growing. And we know so many founders will just put in that hockey stick, and really we tell them every time, we're like, take that, like, we're like, stop. You're not going from 12,000 to 15 million in a year. Like, just stop.
Nobody believes you.
No one believes you.
No one believes you. That would be nice, but no one believes you. So I think what I hear you saying is, you are making it as easy as possible for people to do their homework. And even if you don't manage to hit every single person you want to connect with while you're there is ample opportunity to just extend out the impact much farther beyond the 2-day event.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And what's so cool is that, Venture Atlanta is part of what we call InnovatL. So there's like weeks
Yeah.
of things happening in Atlanta, for students, for all different groups. But I mean, we're like starting things on Sunday this year. Like Dell is doing a pitch competition, and, Georgia Tech is working with 7 different universities on Avant South. And we have our venture crawl and our pickleball tournament and happy hours and dinners. And I mean, I used to spend our day and a half conference. I used to spend 2 nights downtown. This year, I have to spend 5 because we have
Yeah.
so much going on.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm already registered to do the Founders and Funders run, and already, this last one we had like 30 plus people, and it's just going to be huge. It's going to be great. So you've mentioned working together, inside of the metro region as well as kind of inside the Southeast region, more broadly. You just mentioned InnovatL. You've talked about ATDC. What it sounds like to me, and what I've heard you talk about in the past, is the power of collaboration in
Mhm.
Atlanta.
Yes.
And I would love to hear why collaboration makes Atlanta really different and why it is such a pillar for our continued success in
Yeah.
the innovation ecosystem.
You will hear me all the time talk about that.
Mhm.
It's like my little soapbox. And, I really kind of say it's our secret sauce because, you don't go to different markets and see that and hear that. And like someone will reach out to me and they'll say, okay, how can you get me from point A to point B? And I'm like, all right, I could take you here, then take you to here. This person will connect you, then this person will help you, then this person will help you. And, you look at like the Atlanta Unlocked program that, Allie Merritt and, Jake Bailey and the Chamber kind of, shepherded, and which helped connect in Atlanta Tech Park, which no
Yeah.
one knew of, out of North Cross and Peachtree Corners, and Tech Alpharetta, like incredible things that Karen Cashin is doing. And, again, looking what ATDC is doing, looking what Tech Village is doing, looking at the Russell Center, even Switchyards and, Techstars and, all the different groups. But I was really the biggest thing that made me think of this is I was at, again, Pitch Atlanta. So, okay, big shout outs to Allie Merritt. I was at Pitch Atlanta and there was a guy that I was talking to, and he said, if we were in LA right now, like people would have like 10 things on top of, this event that all competed with each other, that everyone had to decide what they needed to do. He said, like, you guys are all here and everyone's excited and everyone's supporting each other. And he goes, and no one's saying, oh, there's 5 other things that all have the same audience, the same premise, pick one. And I said, no, we don't do that. Like that's not going to help us. And, I know that when I put out the dates for Venture Atlanta, people go, okay, let me start building everything around it. And
Yeah.
because we can lift each other up, like,
Yeah.
we can help each other, we can lift each other up. But the collaboration, I mean, it's so key. I mean, I kind of say Southern hospitality. It's like, what can we do for you? How can we help you? And it's just, I don't think it's like that in other markets. I mean, I just don't, like I go, down to Florida and yeah, groups work together, but like, the state is so big. So something going on in Jacksonville, they're not really working with people down in Miami. I mean, I could say the same thing, do I work with Columbus and Savannah that much? Probably not, so I could definitely say that. But if someone came to us and said, hey, we would do it, we would help them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think what I hear is, not only just an incredible environment of collaboration, but a ton of mutual respect, that we are all operating under the same larger objective, which is to transform this region into a leading innovation market. And whether that is, kind of circling back to the start, the mayor's office or the metro chamber or the university systems or, whatever it is, the fact that, there are a couple of emails that come out in the beginning of the week, and it's got the list day by day of what's going on. And, it all works together. And you can see people are building these calendars around one another to be respectful and
Yeah.
supportive,
And even like
and
Startup
collaborative.
Atlanta. So I'm on the
Yeah.
board of that organization as well.
Yeah.
And, we've done a great job with a community calendar and leading the way
Yep.
on different things. And, for the first time, you really can go to one place and see what's going on, in different markets. And then we've got this, ecosystem guide. So, if
Yeah.
someone comes to town, it's where do I go? We send them
Yeah.
there, because you
Yep.
could see the funds, you could see the different incubators, you could see the different organizations. And again, I don't know that all the other cities have those.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And, we had a great conversation with Maya from Hypotamus too. And, talking about how that, publication kind of serves the same purpose, but in print, or in digital, print. And just, creating those calendars and those lists and the features and, all of these
But you
opportunities. So,
even look at that and take that one step further, that
yeah.
Ashish Mistry, who's a serial entrepreneur, is the one who
Yeah.
started Hypotamus.
Right. Right.
So it's like, he's been a part of the CEO Council. He's been a part of Control Freak, and he's got a fund, BLH Ventures. He's working on a pickleball company. He was the one that hired me 17 years ago as a side note. So,
Yeah.
but he saw a need and started something, and, that's just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I would say that even the support system is a system of innovators, which is really, really cool. So let's start wrapping up. What are you, Venture Atlanta aside, because that is the obvious answer. We're not playing the Tiger Woods game here. What are you most excited about in the next, say, 6 to 12 months?
Going to Costa Rica for my 30th anniversary. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I think that should totally win.
No, so vacation being done. Just for us to continue to grow and build and be a part of things, and to see us, continuing up that map a little bit, to see what happens. After the election, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how things are going to change, but I do continue to see the growth in Atlanta. I mean, there seems to be kind of no stopping what's happening. What more and more people are, like there was an organization, Hearst Lab, that they're bringing $100,000 pitch competition to Atlanta in November. They've never done it here before. Dell is doing it, their competition as part of Venture Atlanta this year. They've never done it before. I'm excited of what the corporates we're seeing a lot of support from the corporates, from Chick-fil-A this year and Georgia Pacific and Southern Company and Cox and, so many others. So I think they're continuing to pour more and more into the ecosystem as well.
That's awesome. Well, what a great place to sort of land. You have given us just a brilliant tour of the opportunity environment, and whether it's a specific event like Venture Atlanta, or the kinds of people who are here, or the resources that people can just log online and go find. There is every excuse to succeed here. So thank you for walking us through all of that. It's been really helpful, and I'm hopeful that the people who are listening have been taking notes. We will endeavor to put some links in the show notes in case that was not happening. But just to sort of land, where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, super easy. You can also find me all over Venture Atlanta's website. So, but you can find me at Eman at ventureatlanta.org. Obviously, Venture Atlanta, it's ventureatlanta.org. Registration's open now. So, we did sell out the last 3 years. So I wouldn't wait till the last minute, and ticket prices do go up. So, we've had registration open for months. So when entrepreneurs come to me and say, "But I don't want to pay that," I'm like, "Well, you should have registered months ago." So we try. We work with everybody, but we've got a great session, a great program scheduled for this year. Lots of good stuff, and we got a big old tent that's going to be outside this year, and some additional programming that's going to happen in there. So big block party with Techstars. So it's going to be fun.
It's going to be a blast. Well, I can't wait. Thank you again so much for your time and
You're
sharing
welcome.
all
Thank
of
you.
your insights. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for listening to the BIP Ventures Extraordinary Pursuits podcast. Check the show notes on our blog for the resources we discussed. You can find Extraordinary Pursuits on your favorite audio platform. Be sure to subscribe to the BIP Ventures YouTube channel and connect with us on LinkedIn, X, and Instagram so you get all the stories, learnings, and ideas for ways to thrive in the innovation economy. And if you liked this episode, be generous. Share it.